Hey, Daniel with Powell Machine-Powell cams. I got a bunch of emails about and comments about Steve Morris, so hang loose, we're gonna get into it. All right, so there's, I don't know, 10 people, 15 people have made some comments and sent me links to this video that Steve done, Steve Morris Race Engines. It's a LS blower deal, and they were having some problems, and they put solid lifters on a hydraulic cam. And a bunch of people was like, you know, can you do that? What's the deal? And I've had, not pertaining to this video or Steve, but I've had tons and tons of other comments and emails about solid lifters on hydraulic profiles. So I felt like this would be just, you know, a good way to show a perfect example and just answer the question, and hopefully we can just put it to bed, right? So I hadn't watched the video, but I watched the video. Some people sent me links, so I watched the video all the way through to make sure that I had context, right? So about what the whole deal, what's going on, and why, when, where, how. So let's just start the screen recorder, and we're gonna watch a little section here where Steve talks about it, and then we'll just unpack what's going on. How about that? So let me get this screen recorder started. Here we go.
You can see the guy's got the blower off, intake manifold blower off. We're changing. This is a hydraulic camshaft. Wait for it. It's cool. It's gonna, like, some of you guys will go just blow your brain right off.
The internet experts will be out full force.
Do this. Yes, you can do it. We have put solid lifters on a hydraulic roller cam. Yes, you can do it. It's a matter of figuring out, knowing what the exact lash needs to be, which is just tight. So I will set them up at 5 thousandths of lash. And what you get here, as I'm eating this cookie, Christmas cookie. Yeah, I shouldn't be eating this Christmas cookie. The last one I'm having. Anyways, what this will do and prove out is if we have any kind of lift or pump up issue, you can do this. It actually works very well. I might even talk to Mike and actually give him the option of leaving these in there, versus trying to figure out how to fix the lifter. If it fixes it, we just gotta see if it fixes it. This will absolutely positively for sure tell us if there's a lifter pump up problem or any kind of weird deal going on with hydraulic rollers.
All right, I'm gonna stop it right there. So just a couple of things there. So, you know, they already knew that the internet was gonna explode, them putting solid lifters on a hydraulic profile. And, you know, I get all these crazy comments too about stuff, and, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know what people think sometimes, but, you know, the internet does seem to know. So a lot of people were just genuinely, the people that sent me stuff, I don't think there was no malice involved, but I believe that they just truly are curious. But then you got these other people who's like, oh, you can't do that, you know, blah, 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 blah. So, and what Steve said, you know, like figuring out the lash, and we've talked about this in other videos, and I think, what did he say he was going to set them at? I don't remember, 6 or something. So the actual answer is a hydraulic, and we're going to look at it on the screen, but pretty much all hydraulic profiles are, the lash ramp is at 4 thousandths tappet lift. So for instance, on a LS, it's a 1/7 rocker, unless you have 1/8 rockers. but factory is 1.7. So therefore, you would set the lash, if you had a solid lifter on a hydraulic profile, you would set the lash at 7 thousandths. That's what the math says. Having said that, keep in mind that hydraulic profile almost always is going to have, at that setting, it's going to have a lower velocity and acceleration than an actual solid profile. So, having said that, you could loosen the lash 1 thousandths or maybe 2 more without any real problem, as long as you've got a rigid valve train, you know, good rockers, good push rods, all that kind of junk. So you could probably run 9, and again, you don't need to run any more than 7 unless, like, I don't know, I think that motor was all aluminum. Sometimes when you get a all aluminum motor, a block and a head, and if it's got, you know, possibly hollow stem valves and some rockers, just depending on how they're made and how long the push rod is, it'll grow more than a different combination. So you just need to make sure when you set the lash hot that you let the motor cool off and check the lash and make sure that you're not hanging a valve open. And that's usually the only downfall to a solid lifter on a hydraulic cam, is just making sure that you don't hang the valve open when it's cold. Because like I say, some stuff grows more than others. But it's perfectly fine to run a solid lifter. And with the lash that tight and having a window to be able to let the lash grow if it needed to, the maintenance is really low. I mean, maintenance is really low anyway. Some people just think you got to adjust the valves every pass like you see at, you know, NHRA events, and that's just not the case. I mean, you know, we got bracket stuff that, I mean, the customer tells us that they check the lash every 10, 20 races and just never have to touch it. I mean, unless something, I say it all the time, unless something's going away, you know, you sucking a valve, tuliping a valve, or, you know, a wheel's going away, or, you know, push rod pockets are going, I mean, something has got to be wearing, or, you know, a valve will tulip. Like, if most of that's going to be like boosted applications, but, you know, sometimes those exhaust valves get hot and it'll actually pull them up, like shrink them and pull them high, so then the lash will go away instead of adding extra lash. But so in this scenario, they kept nosing over about 6800, and he goes on, I'll link the video. You need to watch the whole video if you ain't watched it, for context for this whole deal. But just, I mean, like, a couple of obvious problems that I see right off is it's boosted, it's a bunch of RPM. They used factory GM hydraulic lifters, which are just not very good anymore. And it's got 3/8 push rods, it's got a whole bunch of spring pressure, and it's got steel intake valves. And what else was it? Oh, and them big Jessel shaft rockers. All of that added together equals train wrecks for hydraulic lifters. Hydraulic lifters are super sensitive. And what happens a lot of times is it's either, and I'm sure that there's valve float. And that's why I preach all the time, don't run 100 thousandths preload on your lifter. Because when you get some lofting over the nose, then the lifter pumps up, and then it takes a minute for it to catch back up, and then it just kind of loses control. And or the lifter bleeds to death, and then the cam just gets smaller and smaller and smaller as RPM increases because the lifter is bleeding. So it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, you screwed this way and you screwed this way. So you got to run little push rods. You got to run the lightest valve money can buy. You need the least amount of spring pressure to do the job. I mean, it's just, they just sensitive. This was the solution. I mean, if you're gonna run a hydraulic profile in an application like what they're trying to do here, to me, straight out of the gate, it would have been a solid lifter and call it a day. I mean, it would have probably, I mean, I don't know the end application, but I'd have probably just done a solid profile and just put the whole thing to bed. And that way, you know, with a solid profile, you can just put so much more velocity and acceleration in the lobe. You don't have to, you know, you ain't got to worry about freaking out the hydraulic lifter, because I mean, and it works fine, but if you're gonna have a solid lifter and solid lifter springs, then why not have a solid lifter profile? I mean, you just might as well take advantage of the area under the curve and, you know, call it a day, because it looks like it's got a mast head on it. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's got a nice head. It probably flows way up. So, you know, put some lift in that thing and get on with it. But you know, I just wanted to try to answer that question. And you know, and again, I'll just say it again because, you know, sometimes people don't listen, or they just didn't hear it or see that video. But just remember, lash is rocker arm dependent. So whatever ratio it is, you need to multiply that by the lash at the tappet. And sometimes that data is available and sometimes it's not available, but for sure on all our stuff, you know, if you just call or email us and I can give you any data you need. But pretty much all hydraulic profiles are 4/1000 tappet lift. So just multiply 4/1000 by the rocker ratio, and that's what you set your valve at hot, and that's the story. So let me minimize this, and then let's look at this profile. 2 examples. So here is, let me minimize it again. So here is 2 profiles. The taller profile is obviously a solid. Short profile is a hydraulic. And I mean, ultimately they're similar. The solid is like 255 at 50. The hydraulic's like 237 at 50, 237 and a half. And so again, you see this velocity, right? So this short velocity is the hydraulic, this big tall velocity is the solid, and this is the advantage to the solid. You can just move it faster. So again, I would just do a solid profile and just, you know, forget about the hydraulics altogether. But down here, what I've done is the center line of both lobes are the same. So we just got the lobes lined up, and on the opening side, I put the green line at 4/1000 tappet lift for the hydraulic, and the blue line is 10/1000 tappet lift for the solid, because the solid is 17 lash at the valve, and the hydraulic would be 7/1000. So that way you can just see the span difference. I think it's, let me zoom in on it. I think it's, so it's about 4 degrees. So the hydraulic would actually open 4 degrees earlier than the solid with these lash settings. But you know, we talked about it before. If you've seen my video about the difference between hydraulic and solid profiles, you know, the hydraulic is big at 6, whereas the solid, you know, is much narrower at, well, we rate them at 20. But but you can see the difference. So this green is for the hydraulic and this blue is for the solid, and that's the lash pickup point. So, you know, it's not massively different, but it's different. And again, all hydraulics are going to be that way. Solids are vary as far as lash settings. I mean, and they vary, well, they don't vary a ton. I mean, usually it's going to be at the tap it, it's going to be 10 to 16 is probably the window for most stuff today. But again, just a FYI, because like I say, I had a whole handful of people send me, you know, links to that video or email me and say, hey, you know, Steve Morris just done XYZ, and you know, what do you think about that? And so we just answered the question. So so hopefully all of that clears that up. Let me stop this deal here and open this back up. And let me back this up just a little bit. All right, so right here you can see, you know, the big rockers, and yeah, you can see the push rods. I mean, it's got big 3/8 push rods in it, and like I say, you know, hydraulic stuff just don't like that. It just don't work. I ain't saying there's an application where it never works, but rarely do I ever see that scenario work out. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you're going to do all this, just go solid and call it a day. You know, if you're trying to run stock rockers, or maybe even some, like maybe some Johnson short travels or something, you could probably get by okay with Johnson short travels, because it's just going to bottom the lifter out, and that would be okay. But anyway, y'all quit picking on Steve. He's doing a fine job, and you know, sometimes you just try to make stuff work and it just don't work, and you got to go to plan B. So anyway, that's the story. Let me know what you think. Leave me some comments, and again, you know, it's fine. It's perfectly fine, and he did the right thing, and he got it solved, and they ended up putting even some more spring pressure. So that just sort of, because keep in mind, I probably should stop, but keep in mind, you know, when you got a forced induction, all of that pressure is behind the valve. The valve is trying to close, there's pressure behind it, and it's trying to blow it back open. So it's effectively negating a whole bunch of spring pressure. So if you've got, and then on top of that, and I think we talked about this too, but on the opening side of the exhaust, it's trying to open under pressure. So in a boosted application, 95 times out of 100, you need more intake spring pressure and probably a little less exhaust spring pressure, and you for sure need a really soft opening side to just not murder the flank on the exhaust side of the cam just because you're trying to open under that. And I mean, 15, 20 PSI ain't the end of the world, but when you get up 30, 40, 50 PSI boost, the cylinder pressures are really, really high, and then you'll start seeing problems on the opening side of the exhaust. So just keep that in mind. And so another quick thing while I got it on my mind, you seen if you watch his video, you'll see the boost spikes. So whatever's going on at the end, the boost spikes a lot. So I ain't gonna tell you the answer, but just think about what could be going on with the valve train that could allow pressure, extra pressure, because keep in mind, the blower is putting pressure in the manifold. So, you know, it's stopping anything from going out the top. And then, so you just got cylinder pressure and you got blower pressure. So there's only really about two ways for that scenario to happen. So just think about what could be happening and put pressure back into the manifold for the sensor to see that spike, for the map to see that spike. And then you'll grasp what's going on with the valve train and why the whole system's taking a dump. So anyway, hope that helped. Hope that answers some questions. Thank you again for watching. Steve's doing a good job. We watch his show all the time. It's good stuff. Like, share, subscribe. My naked hungry kids will really appreciate it. Check out the website, powellmachininc.com. Thank you. See you on the next one.